To my colleague from New Jersey, the message most important is that the tyranny has already arrived. It is not down the street. It is not around the corner. It will not be encountered on the path tomorrow. It is here at this very moment. And that tyranny comes in two forms, so important to our country. The first is the attack on freedom. Freedom is secured by due process. So when an authoritarian president runs over due process, he threatens freedom for all of us. When an authoritarian president says, I will dictate through research grant control what universities teach, he's stealing the academic freedom of our independent universities and really gutting the vision that people go to universities to explore ideas and to learn, not to receive propaganda written by a government. If you want that version of the world, that's not freedom. That's found in tyrannical governments. That's found in China, not here at our universities in the United States of America. When he proceeds to say we are going to control law firms by suing them and taking away their security clearances and extorting them to put $1 billion of free law into causes the president wants, that is a form of tyranny against the free enterprise of law firms to have the clients they want and serve the people they want. I read an article sometime in the middle of the night that was about the profound impact on nonprofits that are out of favor with the president, and therefore they're not getting the legal help that they had in the past, and how that affects their largely impoverished clients. So there's damage that ripples through the universe from these attacks on freedom. And now is the moment where we have seen the fundamental separation of powers disappear. You know, I thought of these robust branches of government, the executive, the Congress, the judiciary, each valiantly defending their role in order to preserve the checks and balances of this beautiful document we call our We the People Constitution. But what happens if the Congress is controlled by a party that says, our goal is to do what the president tells us? Suddenly that check and balance, the president, is gone. What if the court, the Supreme Court, says we want to, regardless of what's written in the Constitution, hand more power to the president? And they say, you know what, we'll make the president above the law, which they did in a law case last year. And suddenly you have the three elements that create tyranny in place of freedom, or authoritarianism in place of a republic. And those are a rubber-stamped Congress, a deferential court, and an aggressive authoritarian personality with a good plan. And he came in with a good plan called Project 2025. And the chief engineer on that Trumpian tyranny train is Russell Vought at OMB. So every essential element of the authoritarian takeover of the United States is here right now. Now, you mentioned a reverberation about how the president's policies are making people sicker and poor. And here is the connection. When you have an authoritarian government, it basically operates to the power of the billionaires. And so we saw it at the inauguration. We saw the billionaires standing behind the president. We saw Elon Musk standing behind the president. We saw Jeff Bezos standing behind the president. We saw Mark Zuckerberg standing behind the president. And when you do that, you're okay pursuing legislation that hurts families while helping billionaires. And that is the theme of what we have seen. Here's a picture of the billionaires lined up behind the president. We call sometimes the bill, his major policy bill, the great or the big ugly betrayal, because he campaigned on helping ordinary people. But then on Inauguration Day, there's no ordinary people behind him. There's no champions for health care, no champions for housing, no champions for education, no champions for good-paying jobs and investment in infrastructure. No, those who have already at the very top of the money pyramid in the United States of America are there. So now you have the main bill, and the main bill, what does it do? Well, it savages health care to pay for tax breaks for billionaires. It savages child nutrition to pay for tax breaks for billionaires. So the authoritarian takeover of our government is also linked to this assault on the families. As you said, groceries are going up. The president's employing tariffs that drive up the cost of groceries. If he was looking to help families, he wouldn't choose to do tariffs that drive up the cost of families. And in fact, the president doesn't even have authority under the law to do tariffs to begin with, which he just took it because that's what authoritarians do until the courts stop him. And the courts, moving slowly, have not acted. And you mentioned health care costs going up. Well, I don't know about what the new costs are in your state of New Jersey. In Oregon, the projection was a 68% increase in costs on the exchange. But nationwide, 114% average, meaning Oregon, well, as much as we're shocked by 68% inflation in health care policies, well, nationally, it's more than doubling. So think of all the people who will be unable to acquire insurance. And that's just a piece of the big, ugly betrayal bill, because then you get into the fact that they gutted Medicaid, the Oregon health plan. 70% of the children in rural Oregon are on the Oregon health plan. Think of the devastation when 235,000 Oregonians are projected to lose health care. And what happens when they get sick and they don't go to the hospital because they don't have insurance? So then they get sicker, and when they do go to the hospital, it's the emergency room. And maybe the modest health problem has become a major health problem. Maybe the diabetes that easily controlled has become a foot amputation or an eye problem, an eyesight problem. Maybe the cancer has grown or spread around the body. So not only is an illness more expensive to treat, but the odds of recovery of worse, and it's being treated in the most expensive part of a hospital, the emergency room. And then, because there's no insurance to pay for it, the hospital or clinic gets less revenues, and then they have to shut down programs or shut down completely, and then we have less health care for everyone in the community. And then you mentioned utilities, and I was just fielding a question from our colleague from Minnesota, and she said, what about that $8 billion attack on energy projects in blue states? Energy projects that would produce renewable energy that often, at utility scale, is 2 cents per kilowatt hour. My bill in Oregon is fairly cheap compared to the nation. I think it's 12 to 14 cents per kilowatt hour. I'm guessing yours is a lot higher than that. So if that utility can buy energy at 2 cents per kilowatt hour, your bill's going to go down. But I'm pretty sure your bill's going up because of the policies of this administration. So if this administration was worried about families, they wouldn't have passed the big, ugly betrayal that does so much damage to families in order to fund tax breaks for billionaires, wouldn't be using tariffs in this manner, wouldn't be cutting low-cost utility projects that will lower the cost of energy. And thus, here we are, 10 months of making Americans sicker and poorer.